Welcome to the Pinnacle of Prophecy. So glad to see each of you here. And those who are joining us on television, we welcome you as well. And again, we invite you, those of you who are viewing from around the world, we'd love to have you take a picture of your group and send it to us, and we'll share that. Keeps the International Family Bible Study feel going. Tonight's lesson, cinch up your seatbelt. And tomorrow night and Sabbath, Saturday morning, we'll be meeting here. And you'll want to come early, but our program will technically start at about 11 o'clock. We're going to be dealing with the beast and the mark of the beast and Babylon that are outlined in Revelation. Everything we've been giving you now is sort of foundation that leads up to that, and we want you to understand these things. Pray for me as I share, because I want to do this in the right spirit, but I want to be faithful to the Word. And as they say, I don't plan on pulling any punches, but I want to do it gracefully. So our lesson tonight is dealing with the beast of blasphemy. That's lesson number 12. We're going through our study guides. Those of you who are watching, some tune in, and this is the first program they're seeing. If you go to the Pinnacle of Prophecy website, you'll find these study guides. You can download them and follow along. You'll notice in the presentations we're emphasizing certain scriptures. We want you to have the Bible scriptures in your hands so you can remember these things and also share them with others. As I said, tomorrow night we're doing the mystery of Babylon, and then we're going to be talking about Satan's mark or God's seal, Sabbath morning, right here. All right, the beast of blasphemy tonight. I'll be talking fast. Please listen quickly. We'll begin with an amazing fact. Tallest statue in the world, it's fairly new, is in India right now. It's called the Statue of Unity, and it is 597 feet tall. That's just about twice as tall as the Statue of Liberty. It's of one of the great statesmen of India that helped unite the country, hence the name, the Statue of Unity. It cost over $400 million to build. It required 3,000 workers and 250 engineers to build it, and it took 3.5 years, 1,260 days. That's just a coincidence, but I think it's interesting. And it's this massive statue that you can go in and up and around in India. It harkens back to another statue we're going to talk about that you find in the book of Daniel chapter 3. But before we go there, we are going through the whole Pinnacle of Prophecy is using chapter 14 of Revelation, the middle of Revelation, as that pinnacle chapter that is a springboard to all the main themes you find in prophecy and indeed even the plan of salvation. That's a chapter that talks about the everlasting gospel, the reward of the righteous, the seal of God, and Babylon, the beast and the mark of the beast and the punishment of the wicked. It's got the whole thing in there. Giving glory to God, warning people to come out of Babylon. And now you have the third angel's message that you read here in Revelation chapter 14. And this is the verses 9 and 10. Then a third angel followed them, saying, with a loud voice, if anyone worships the beast in his image and receives his mark on his forehead or in his hand, he himself will also drink the wine of the wrath of God that is poured out full strength into the cup of his indignation. It goes on to talk about the torment, but we studied that already another night. Probably one of the most fearful warnings in the Bible is here in this chapter, given to those who worship the beast. Now, when we talk about the beast in the last days, people have all kinds of different ideas of what that might be. I remember when I became a Christian and I was younger, all my friends were saying they got a big computer in Brussels, it's called the Beast, and it fills 3 stories, and they said that it's got the goods on everybody, and a lot of that I think was an urban myth, and right now you could probably fit that whole computer into your phone. So that was not the Beast. And then people said it was the barcode, and then I had some friends that they looked at the logo of Procter & Gamble. You ever look at that? And, it's got these like 6 stars, and they said, if you draw a line between them, it comes to 666. I've heard all kinds of crazy things, but let's let the Bible interpret the Bible. You don't have to be wondering what is the beast. It is very clear. The reason this study is so important is because everybody thinks, I wonder when the beast is going to get busy. Friends, the beast is here. He is already enthroned. And the devil has got the whole world, Christian world, distracted looking the wrong way when the real thing is happening right under their noses, and I'm going to prove it to you. Go to chapter 3 of Daniel. Hope you read the whole thing later, but I'll give you the quick overview. King Nebuchadnezzar II, they call him just Nebuchadnezzar because no one knows about the first. He was one of the most powerful rulers during that golden era of Babylon. And he got the bright idea one day to unite the kingdom and make it eternal through common worship. And he made a statue of gold that was 60 cubits. Now that would be 90 feet. But in the Bible, when it gives numbers, use the number in the Bible. Don't try to convert it to English numbers or metric numbers. For instance, in Revelation, it talks about that the city was 12,000 furlongs. Notice the number 12 goes all through Revelation. 12 is the number to pay attention to. In Daniel chapter 3, it says it was 60 feet high, or 60 cubits by 6 cubits. And I heard one Hebrew scholar tell me that in the Jewish reckoning, that if something was given height and width, if it does not add the depth would be the same as the width. Like the altar of incense was, I believe, 2 cubits by 1 cubit by 1 cubit. See what I'm saying? Which means that this statue was 60 by 6 by 6. Interesting. And then everybody's told to fall down and worship that statue, and those who do not worship the image would be killed. In order to understand Revelation, you need to know your Old Testament, and Daniel and Revelation are woven together as almost, you can't understand one without the other. So he gives the command, they play the Babylonian music, and everybody's supposed to bow down, and they unveil this image, and it's splendid, and folks are just awestruck with all this gold, and they all bow down except for 3 Hebrews. Their names, Hebrew, was Hananiah, Mishael, Azariah. We know them by their Babylonian names that are more fun to say, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And we used to tell our kids the story, and we'd say, Shadrach, Meshach, and to bed you go. But they stood up when everybody else bowed down. They were not only at risk of losing their jobs, because they worked for Nebuchadnezzar, but they were going to lose their lives. Why could they not bow down? Because there was a commandment. The second commandment says, you shall not make unto you any graven image, the likeness of anything in the heaven above, or the earth beneath, or the waters under the earth, and you shall not bow down to them. And they said, no can do, king. He didn't want to lose them. They were some of the brightest guys in his government. And he said, maybe you didn't hear what the consequences are. I'll give you another chance. We'll play the music again. You guys don't want to die. And one of them said, you don't need to play the music again. Our God that we serve, he's able to deliver us from your hand. But even if he doesn't deliver us, we're not going to serve your gods. Oh, the king was rabid when he heard that. He told them to fire up the furnace 7 times hotter than it was designed to be heated. And if you don't think it was hot, it was so hot that the soldiers that threw Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the fire were killed by the heat wafting out. They fell down bound in the midst of the fire, but the fire did not hurt them. In fact, Nebuchadnezzar rose up in astonishment, and he said to his advisors, didn't we throw 3 guys in the fire? They said, that's true, king. He says, I'm looking in there, and right now I see 4. And they're loose, and they're walking around. They're not tied up anymore, and they don't seem to be harmed, and the form of the 4th is like the Son of God. Who came to them when they stood up in their fiery trials? You know, they read where Isaiah promised, when you go through the fire, I will be with you. And he was with them. And he called them out, and he promoted them. God did through those Hebrews on the plains of Dura that day what he'd been trying to do through the Jewish nation for hundreds of years. They stood up for their God. They demonstrated the power of God. And the king made a decree that nobody speak against the God of Daniel and Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, or they'd be destroyed. And instead of them being the victims, they were the victors that day. Instead of Nebuchadnezzar's God being glorified, you forget all about the image Jehovah's glorified. Why? Because they stood up when everyone else bowed down.
Thank you for watching, friends. If you'd like to know more about today's topic, be sure to request our free offer. This booklet comes absolutely free without cost or obligation, and it's available to all of our Amazing Facts viewers wherever you are in the world. Now don't miss this. You are also invited to request absolutely free the Amazing Facts Incredible Bible Study course along with today's offer. Explore such topics as salvation, the rapture, the mark of the beast, and understand what the Bible says happens when you die. You will be deeply blessed as you develop a closer relationship with Jesus and dive deeper into these exciting Bible truths. We look forward to hearing from you.
Learn more about today's topic by requesting this week's free offer, The Beast of Blasphemy Study Guide. In Australia, simply call or text your name, email and address to 0480 079 887. For Pacific Islands, New Zealand and all other countries, visit amazingfacts.com.au and click on our free offer banner to make your request. Don't delay. Reach out now. It is sure to be a blessing.
Then you get to Revelation 13, and it tells us this beast power makes an image, or the second beast makes an image to the first beast that had the wound by the sword that did live. And first they can't buy or sell. Ultimately, there is a decree that they should all be killed if they do not worship the image of the beast. You hear the similar language between the two? There's going to be an issue about obedience. The beast power is going to compel people to obey a command that violates the command of God. It says that image of the beast, Revelation 13:15, should both speak and cause as many as would not worship the image of the beast to be killed. So with that backdrop, we're going to go into our study now to explain very clearly who the beast is. Now, when you read in Revelation 13, you've heard of the mark of the beast. Technically, in Revelation 13, how many beasts are there? 2. People forget that. It's not just a beast. It talks about a second beast in verse 11 that rises up that tells people to worship the first beast that was wounded that came back to life. And so I can tell you what I'm going to tell you, then I'll tell you, and I'll tell you what I told you. I believe that the first beast is the papacy, or what we would call the Roman Catholic Church. And I believe the second beast is the United States of America, led out by evangelical Protestants. I am a Protestant. I used to go to Catholic school. There are going to be Protestants and Catholics in heaven. We all listening? I'm not talking about people. I'm not talking about denominations. I'm talking about prophecy, what it says. I'll leave the results with God. I don't want to say anything to unnecessarily offend, but I want to tell the truth. Tonight we're going to be talking about the first beast. Tomorrow night we're going to be talking about our country, which I think is the second beast, and I'll prove it to you. You owe it to yourself to find that out. These prophecies that people are looking around, wondering when they're happening under our nose right now. And even events in the Middle East and world affairs, I think, could be queuing things up for a grand finale. So you need to know what's coming. I need to take this from milk, and we're going to move into the meat. We got some heavy stuff, but I got to start with the basics. Question number 1. Got your lessons? First question. What does a beast represent in Bible prophecy? What is a beast? It's not talking about, Dracula roaming around or Godzilla in the last days. The beast represented nations. Notice what it says in Daniel 7, verse 17. These great beasts which are what? 4 kingdoms. So these beasts represent either kings or their kingdoms. They are world powers. We're going to come to Daniel 7 in just a minute, but let me get through these scriptures here. The fourth beast, Daniel 7:23, the fourth beast shall be the fourth what? What is a beast? A kingdom, a power. Might be a king, might be a kingdom, a nation. And then again, Daniel 8:21, the male goat, which is a beast, it's a creature, is the kingdom of Greece. And so these different beasts that we talk about represent different earthly powers. The beasts that are mentioned in Revelation are the nations and kingdoms that had a direct influence on God's people. It doesn't talk about every nation in the world. There are like 200 plus nations in the world right now, according to the United Nations. And it's really dealing with the nations in history that have impacted God's people. The nation of Israel was occupied by Egypt, Assyria, Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, Rome. Then the divisions of the Roman Empire, and now the influence is global, and Christians are global as well. But it started out principally with the localized nation of Israel, the nations that occupied them, and then it began to spread around the world. Now, so if, we still use this today where different beasts represent different countries. When you think of the American eagle, what country? America! That was a trick question. And the Russian bear, what country? Russia! And the dragon? See, I didn't tell you that time, but you got it. China, right? The lion? England, right? Great Britain uses, a few countries use the lion, but Great Britain is one of them. So it's not unusual that different countries kind of have beasts as their logos. Little amazing fact, when America and our founding fathers were thinking about what their national logo would be, Benjamin Franklin thought it should be the turkey because it helped deliver the pilgrims. I'm so glad that he was wrong about that one. I can't imagine our soldiers going into battle with a big turkey on top of their standard, but anyway. So, back to our question. Turn in your Bibles to Daniel chapter 7. I just want to give you this background. Daniel chapter 7, and there's a vision here, and you really need to look at this quickly. In the first year of Belshazzar, king of Babylon, Daniel had a dream, verse 1, and visions of his head while on his bed, and he wrote down the dream, telling the main facts. Daniel spoke, saying, I saw in my vision by night, and behold, 4 winds of heaven, north, south, east, west, were stirring up the great sea, being the Mediterranean. That was the sea that they knew about. And 4 great beasts came up out of the sea, each different from the other. The first was like a lion, had eagle's wings. I watched till its wings were plucked off, and it was lifted up from the earth and made to stand on its feet like a man, and a man's heart was given to it. This is Babylon. King Nebuchadnezzar ultimately was converted and became a believer, given the heart of a man made in God's image. Suddenly another beast, a second like a bear, raised itself up on one side. This was the kingdom of Persia. Had 3 ribs in its mouth. Why one side? Because it was the Medo-Persian Empire, and the Persians were stronger, so it was kind of lopsided, you might say. 3 ribs in its mouth because it destroyed 3 kingdoms when it came to power. Libya, Egypt. I forget the third one. Huh? Anyway, yeah, look it up. It's in your lesson. And he said, arise and devour much flesh. After this I looked, and there was another like a leopard, which had on its back 4 wings of a bird, and it had 4 heads, and dominion was given to it. The kingdom of Greece, Alexander ruled briefly, and then it was divided among his 4 generals. Leopard with wings, powerful and fast. It moved very rapidly. Now here's where we come to the beast. Beyond Greece, what kingdom came? Rome. And Rome then went through a metamorphosis. Rome went from iron to iron mixed with clay, which meant government and religion. Man was made from clay. After this I saw in the night visions, and behold, a 4th beast, dreadful and terrible, exceedingly strong, huge iron teeth. And it was devouring and breaking in pieces and trampling the residue with its feet. It was different from all the beasts that were before it. It had 10 horns. You get to Revelation, you got a dragon with 7 heads and 10 horns. An overlap between these 2 beasts. It says, and I noticed among the horns a little one coming up among them before 3 of the first horns were plucked up by the roots. And in this horn were the eyes like the eyes of a man, and a mouth speaking pompous words. And then it takes you to a different scene, and you can return now when the angel comes to help him understand this. And you can go to verse 23. Thus the angel said, the 4th beast shall be the 4th kingdom on earth, which will be different from all the other kingdoms, and it will devour the whole earth. It becomes universal. You know what the word Catholic means? Universal. It will trample and break in pieces. The 10 horns are 10 kings who will arise from this kingdom, and another will rise after them. and he'll be different from the first ones, and he will subdue 3 kings, and he'll speak pompous words, blasphemous words against the Most High, and will persecute the saints of the Most High. It's a persecuting power, and he will think to change times and laws. Only one of the 10 commandments is both a time and a law. And it says that the saints will be given into his hand for a time, a times, and half a time. That is a year, a pair of years, or 2, and half a year. That's total 3.5 years. Then you go to Revelation, it talks about the beast power reigning 42 months. Guess how long 42 months is? 3.5 years. In a Jewish calendar, 30 days to a month, they're both 1,260 days. These are the same beast. God in the visions shows you something from different perspectives. As you walk around, he gives you different visions so nobody can misunderstand. But you're going to see the connection that this fourth power that is going to be a universal power is going to be persecuting. Okay, question number 2. Who gives the beast, this final beast, its power and position? Answer? The dragon gave him his power, his throne, and great authority. Now, who is the dragon? Well, it says in Revelation 12 that old serpent, the dragon, the devil, and Satan, so it's ultimately the devil, but he's now working through a kingdom. What kingdom? You can read in Revelation 12 that this dragon seeks to devour the man-child as soon as it's born, Jesus. What power tried to destroy Jesus as a baby? Remember, it says in Matthew chapter 2, verse 13, the angel said, "Arise and take the young child and his mother and flee to Egypt and stay there till I bring you word, for Herod will seek the young child to destroy him." King Herod was infuriated when the wise men did not tell him where the star directed them. They slipped out another way because an angel warned them, and he sent his soldiers into Bethlehem and killed all the male babies 2 years old and under because he was threatened. They said that this baby was going to be the king of the Jews, and that was Herod's title. He was called the king of the Jews. Now, Herod was a vassal for the Roman Empire. And so the devil then was working through Rome, not only when Jesus was a baby at his birth, but who was ruling the world at Jesus' death? Those were Roman soldiers that pierced his side and drove the nails into his hands. Yes, they were egged on by the religious leaders, but Rome was the ruling power. Rome, ruled by Caesars, is known as pagan Rome. And then Rome goes through a transition. Quick history lesson. For the first 100, 200 years of the church history, the devil fought Christianity with just out-and-out persecution. The Christians were fed to the lions in the Colosseum. They were persecuted. They went underground. They built the catacombs. We were just in Rome not long ago looking at the different catacombs this year. And terrible persecution. One emperor, not only Nero, who killed Peter and he killed Paul, but Diocletian and others, they were brutal in their efforts to exterminate Christianity and wipe out their holy scriptures. But the more they persecuted them, it's like one of the church fathers said, the blood of the martyrs is seed. It's like trying to kill star thistle by mowing it. All you do is you scatter it and it grows better. And the more they tried to mow down the Christians, the more Christians popped up. Part of the reason is they'd see these Christians dying for their faith in the Colosseum with absolute peace. And they were singing. And all the pagans lived in fear. And they said, these guys have something. And they'd search out Christians. They'd ask about it. And the church just was spreading. So the devil went to plan number 2. If he couldn't destroy the Christians with plan A of extermination and annihilation and genocide, he would destroy them with compromise. So instead of doing it from the outside, he said, I'm going to do it from the inside. I'm going to join them and then corrupt them. Along came a Roman emperor by the name of Constantine, who really, he was fighting other, the barbarians were coming down and Rome was having a civil war, and he said, why are we fighting Christians? They're not really violent. And his mother converted to Christianity. That helped. And so he legalized Christianity. In fact, he sort of overnight made it a state religion. He ordered his army of pagan Roman soldiers that worshiped all these idols and gods, marched through the Tiber River in Rome, He said, I'm going to conquer under the sign of the cross. I've had a vision, and you are all now Christians. Well, they had no instruction, and so they went into the water dry pagans, and they came up wet pagans with the name Christian. And they brought all the paganism into the church. So what happened in Rome now is you had a commingling of Greco-Roman religion and Christianity. It did not happen overnight. It happened between Constantine, 321 AD, and Justinian, about 200 years later. They had all these idols of Jupiter and Mercury and Apollos and Venus, and they said to the Christians, what do we do? We can't get rid of our idols. He said, well, give them Christian names. So they called them Peter, James, John, and Mary. But doesn't the Bible say idolatry is a sin? Yeah. And the pastors, the Christian pastors, they used to dress like everybody else. And, they would preach and teach, and all of a sudden, the priests started to be a caste, a hierarchical system to be worshipped. And they took the Bibles away from the people, and they said, you're too ignorant to understand that. We'll read it, and then we'll tell you what it says. And they began to change the doctrines and commingle them. I told you about them commingling Greek mythology about the devil being in charge of hell. Where do you have the devil being in charge of hell? Or that he's, got horns and red leotards and bat wings. And all this paganism came into the church. And it was the great compromise. And from that, instead of Rome, pagan Rome, the iron monarchy of Rome, as Rome was crumbling as a government, the Church of Rome was growing. And the dragon gave its seat, power, and authority to this final beast. We're going to show you that from history. So along came Justinian. Note the date you see here, 538 AD. Justinian elevated the papacy in power. He was a Roman emperor. He gave them military power to enforce compliance. Did Jesus ever say, believe me, or we're going to put you in jail or kill you? They began to force it as a state religion. And you can read here in History of the Christian Church, Vigilus ascended the papal chair under the military protection of Belisarius in 538 AD. And all of a sudden it became a government, a religious political government that was sort of a mishmash of Christianity and paganism altogether. Now, there were many faithful people during that time that did their best to oppose the compromise. And you can read about Peter Waldo and the Waldensians, and many of them were driven by the state church into the hills. They were still faithful Christians.
Don't forget to request today's free offer. It's sure to be a blessing. And thank you for your continued support as we take the gospel of Jesus Christ to the world. We hope you'll join us next week as we delve deep into the Word of God to explore more amazing facts. This presentation was brought to you by the Friends of the Amazing Facts Ministry.